And there we are. Evening, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? Welcome back to Real Northern Bass Talk, the weekly live stream we do on the channel every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Although pretty much everybody is here already knows that. It's always good to have a friendly reminder for those that are new. So for those that are new, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate you as always. I will keep the introduction short before we get into the actual heart of the topic tonight, which is going to be everything rods. We've bounced into this topic kind of in and out in various streams where, inevitably we try to cover way too much every single time. And the last two times we did this, we really shortchanged talking about just rods when length matters and power and action and how all those things kind of play into your favor or against you, depending upon what kind of technique you want to go with. So that is all we're doing tonight. We're doing a deep dive just into rods. Before we get started, two things. First, wherever you're watching, YouTube or Facebook, please leave a like. It helps immensely, and I appreciate those that do that. Anybody that shared the stream before that, it went live, I really, really appreciate everybody that does that, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. That is hugely helpful. Anybody that's new from the New Hampshire Outdoor Expo, thank you. I had two really good seminars that went on down there. We did really well in apparel sales, which is great because I'm still very small in my own consideration. So the fact we did as well as we did makes me extremely happy. We got a lot of subscribers on the channel, a lot of followers on, Instagram and Facebook and TikTok, like all those things. So, for those that are new, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it. And that's pretty much it. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's anything else. I covered it. Okay. Leaks. Yeah, leaks. Wow. Likes. New Hampshire Outdoor Expo went great. All the rods I have out to demonstrate are falling over on me as I'm speaking. We're going to have, I'll show you just briefly, demonstrations to really show you what it is that we're talking about when we're talking about rod length, power, action, everything. Going to load these rods up. Can you really see? And we can demonstrate what it is that we're talking about. That is the plan for this evening. Obviously, everybody knows me. My name is Sean, founder of Real Northern Bass, and I'm joined by Sean Miller, the returning guest here, which I think this makes, what is it, third or fourth straight week you've been on there, Sean?
I don't know. I've lost count. It's all blended into one big happy memory here.
And then we're joined by Christian, who happens to work for Douglas Outdoors. Christian, welcome. Thank you for joining us, buddy. Why don't you take a minute to introduce yourself?
Thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here on the Real Northern Bass live stream with these two good gents. My name's
Sandwich between two Seans.
Sean sandwich.
Two Sean squared. I'm the cream filling. I don't know. But I run the spin and cast sales for Douglas Outdoors. So I am actually coming to you live from Grand Rapids. We're about to embark on the Grand Rapids Ultimate Sports Show. So we just spent all day setting up here and brought a lot of rods. So I'm happy to talk about rods in this live stream. It should be pretty sweet.
That's what I like to hear, bud.
Yeah.
So we have, so we have a plan for how we're going to go through this for everybody, right? We're going to keep it very general at first, and we'll get a little bit more granular in the details. Then following that, then that's where you guys come in with much more specific questions, and we'll get to those after. What I'm trying to do is do a better job of time management on the streams where, last couple of streams, it was phenomenal. We had a lot of comments. We tried to feed everybody into there, but then we didn't get to the real meat of what it is we intended to talk about. So this time we're going to try and streamline things and really get to the meat and potatoes of what it is we want to discuss tonight. And again, that's rod length, rod power, rod action. What does it all mean? And then especially, specifically to Douglas, explaining how, their part numbering system works, for lack of a better way to put it. Good. A lot of people tend to get confused when they go from, your standard length action, power action, 7 foot 2 inch MH-F, right? Medium, heavy, fast. That's not how Douglas does it. They're not the only ones that do it a little bit differently. So we're going to really explain this so you guys can understand what it is that you're looking for. So I've talked a lot. Sean, it's your turn. How would you like to start this? And like I said, I'm ready. I got rod already mounted up on the wall behind me. I got the weights ready. I'm ready to demonstrate whatever the hell it is you want to show off.
All right. Well, I think we start and we talk about to get it out of the way, kind of where the Douglas spinning and casting, especially for those bass fishermen and women out there, where the number system kind of starts, where it ends for Douglas, and then we'll kind of jump in and talk about a little bit of the action. We'll demonstrate some rods and stuff like that, exactly what it means. So, Christian, if you wouldn't mind just kind of diving in a little bit and talking about, just the power. Obviously starts at 2 for light in a couple rod models. But you start to really see it in 3, which is medium light, and 4 medium, and so on. So go ahead and just kind of explain to the viewers here exactly what that number system means and how they can find that number on a Douglas rod.
Absolutely.
In the numbering system for the models.
So Sean was already onto it right there. So basically 2 is our light rod. 3 is our medium light rod. 4 is our medium. 5 is our medium heavy, 6 is our heavy, and 7 is our extra heavy, and that's all we've got. So, for instance, I think back there, Sean S has a 765 XF loaded up back there. So what that means is our coding system is the first 2 numbers within there. That's the actual feet and inches. So 7 foot 6. And then we have that 5 that follows. So the 5 is the power. So we just went through that cycle. 5 is medium heavy. So you have a 7 foot 6 medium heavy and then extra fast. So that's your tip, your extra fast tip. So we have a few different obviously offerings for tip as well. So,
and then as you get into some of those longer rods too, Christian, right? Like you have like a 610, you have a 711, right? And so those rods have 4 numbers in them, right? There's a 610 or 6103, a 7115,
right,
7116, right? And so those numbers correspond. Those first 3 numbers then would then be the length. And so a 7115 is a 7 foot 11 inch medium heavy rod. 7116, 7 foot 11 inches heavy, so on and so forth. So that's kind of where the number system. So it's the first 2 or 3 numbers in the Douglas lineup.
I'm going to throw you one curveball here because there is one extenuating circumstance. So we have multiple. I think I
know where you're going with this.
Yep. We have multiple piece rods too. So for instance, the best example of this is probably one of our most popular spinning rods is a 704F. Okay, so you guys know that's a great all-around spinning rod. So we have a travel rod version of that too. Yep. So the difference in the coding for that, so the 704F versus the 704-3F. So the 3, so anything after that that power rating. So again, 7 foot, so 704, there's your medium. Now that 3 actually denotes 3-piece rod. So that's how you know it's a travel rod. So we have several ones in that lineup. And then when you get into some of the salmon and steelhead stuff too, you'll see like the 2, like a 9852. So after that medium heavy, you have a 9'8" medium heavy 2-piece rod. So that's how to really think about that stuff. It's a little
you don't really see it though in the Douglas lineup, which is fortunate for all of our all of these people out here, myself included, which can kind of be dyslexic at times and confuse numbers and words and stuff. So it's pretty simple all in all, but there is some outliers there.
And one more outlier too. Okay, so we have longer rods too that are over 7-8 that can no longer be shipped economically. So we've created detachable and in a few instances retractable versions for some of our trolling rods. So for instance, on our swim bait rods, like we have 3 new detachable handle models. We have a 711 6F-D. The D stands for detachable. The 805F-D detachable, and 807FD detachable. So there's your 2 curveballs. There's a curveball and a screwball.
I'm trying to find.
I can grab one.
I have one
right in the other room. I just received mine.
I have one right here. So
I'm so excited when I have that 80F. 805FD. And I love the 805. I'm not getting rid of it because it's just too good. But now I can kind of be a little bit more particular in exactly how I want to utilize those.
Sean, did you notice the longer handle section, the true 16 inches butt to trigger?
Oh yes.
Yeah, that's what it needs to be.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be great. I still, you know what though, I'll probably keep the regular 805F just dedicated to A-rigs because I really like it, and like I don't necessarily need that like longer handle, which is great, don't get me wrong, but like, I don't want to give up this rod. I might give it to my kid. He kind of doesn't have a swim bait rod, and he's like really gung-ho for it.
Yeah.
Don't give him a $380 rod.
There's a couple schools of thought on that. It's so funny because some people really don't like that longer handle. I don't know I don't know. It's
yeah. So let's do that. So Sean, they want to detach.
So here's the detachable handle. So there's like a big kind of it's almost like a ferrule that it fits in right here.
Exactly right.
And you basically just set it in here to 45, go like this, and then you just twist it on. And like that thing is, once you get it in here, that thing is absolutely solid. Like you're not pulling this thing out. And once it sits right in here, but it's super easy to just sit here and just twist and get it off. Right. So this rod piece, the handle comes off.
Yeah.
And it fits right here on the rod.
A lot of companies doing that now. Very popular in the JDM market. Megabass has done it on some of their, on the real expensive destroyers like the Tension. They've had that forever, like the big heavy swim bait rods, but also prevalent in some saltwater application too. So people don't understand, it's really, really more of once it's in there, it's acting more like a traditional one-piece rod. There's really no difference because that's exposed carbon that's mating with exposed carbon. So pretty similar.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet too. I mean, that's like we've put those things through the paces too. So it's not like they're not coming off at all.
No, we kill. I'm still fishing the same set of 3 rods, and they're holding up strong. So great.
That's awesome. Hey, you know what? So you brought it up, like JDM market does it a little bit. I don't know. I'm just remembering. Trying to think. This is probably like 2009, 2010, somewhere around there when it first when I was not only finally expanding on my just everything I was doing in bass fishing, but I was really starting to expand on some slightly higher end stuff on casting gear. And because when I first got started, I was either in college or fresh out. I had no money, so everything I bought was from Walmart. And then I, get on some forums. I started asking around, and I for the life of me, I'll never remember what they were, but they were 2 Daiwa rods. They were 7.6 medium heavy fast, and they had kind of a longer handle on it that was telescoping. So it would never, the 2 pieces would never come apart, but you just kind of just bump the friggin' butt end of the rod on the ground, and the 2 would pop apart, and it would collapse in, I don't know, 14 inches maybe. So it's nice. On my older bass boat, it actually allowed it to fit inside the rod locker because it was under 7 feet. That was the max I could get in there. But now I'm going back, Christ, almost 20 years ago, where they had that telescoping thing. It was neat. Those rods didn't hold up well though back then. Those Daiwas, they both broke on a hook set.
Yeah, these ones are nice too, and like a lot of people, without going too far down the detachable handle hole here, people get weirded out by it and they almost get a little scared into, maybe explore rods like that because they feel like, oh, I'm going to cast it and all of a sudden my rod's just going to come shooting off. And and I'm going to lose my rod. I'm going to be standing there with a butt end. And it's like, that's not the case, right? Like we'll even do it at shows with the detachable handles. Like we'll hold on to the handle and you can pull on the rod all you want and it's not coming out. Like oftentimes, like it's not difficult, but like it can pose a challenge to even try to twist the ferrule out and like essentially like get it out to where you can take the handle off. Like it's not just something that's like a quick on and off. It takes a little bit of like muscle and a little patience and some know how to do it. So it's not like you're going to cast a bait and all of a sudden your rod's just going to go flying after the bait. So that's a lot of people's fear, I think, is they think that they're just going to cast off the rod, and that's not.
Especially if you have if the climate changes too, Sean, like, if it gets hotter or if it gets colder, like that, that's going to affect it as well. But just to ease everyone's mind, we got a guy catching 180-pound tarpon on that 711.6 FD, and he's crushing them and no issue. So been fishing them for a year.
Yeah, that doesn't tell you how good it is and how safe it is. I don't know. All right. Well, now, where do you want to go with this? Do you want to start demonstrating some differences and like really kind of what we're talking about with power and action and everything? Load some rods up, let people see what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think before that, like let's talk about action first, right? So like, what does the action mean? Like, what is it? If Christian, if you want to explain it, I'll explain it. Doesn't matter. But let's just kind of go through the extra fast, moderate, slow, and kind of explain to everyone what that means in terms of a rod.
Yeah.
Okay, you start it off, and I'll come in halfway. How about that?
Sure. So we'll start off at kind of like the farthest up the rod as far as like bending and sensitivity goes here. So you kind of start off at the top with the extra fast, right? Extra fast is when you want that unmatched sensitivity on the rod. You're going to choose something that's extra fast, and extra fast means that it's essentially like how quickly the rod returns to straight. Mm-hmm. And so extra fast is going to bend really up at the tip in the very tip section, and not really bend down into the blank. And then as you move down from fast to moderate to slow, right? The slower the action, the deeper into the rod or the blank it will bend. And so depending on what technique you're doing or using, you want to choose a different action to suit the style of presentation or bait that you're using, what kind of hooks you're using, that kind of stuff. If you're looking for something super sensitive, you obviously don't want slow, because slow is going to take a hell of a lot more power to drive the hook home. And so like that's something where you would use slow rods for trolling. That's something there where a lot of the saltwater guys or the inshore guys and fresh guys that do trolling, they use slow rods. Whereas in the bass world, it's extra fast, moderate fast. You even see some moderates here and there, but moderate is definitely one of those things that's not as prevalent in our world.
Our 704M, that's our true like square bill rod. That is moderate for a reason. I mean, you're allowing the fish more time to inhale treble hooks, whereas you don't have to have this, you don't really have to even set. You kind of let the rod do the work, and then you have this nice parabolic bend, cushioning those trebles to really allow you to fight it back to the boat and to not give it an inch. So there is definitely, as Sean said, a reason for each, taper and application, right?
Did I do a good job, by the way, visually demonstrating like we were talking about as you were going through that? Because I feel like I did a good job.
Definitely.
Ryan just actually said it perfect. Let the rod do the work. Yeah, and that's something I talked about a lot, both treble hook applications and really light finesse applications. I like drop shot. 763 XF from Douglas, right?
Yes.
It's got a ton of parabolic bend to that thing, but it picks up quick from that extra fast action, and then the rest of the rod kind of compensates to. It's just another method of giving a little more cushion against the fight from that fish, especially that I typically get from smallmouth, which is what I'm targeting when I'm going really, really light finesse like that. It's a different story when you've got a 5.5 pound to 7 pound smallmouth on the end of a rod with 8 pound line. Like you want everything you can do to get in your advantage. And drag alone isn't always the case, because if you get a heavy rod, you go to a lighter on their drag, but now you're giving too much to the fish and they're just going to strip you and get back down into cover. And that's going to be a nightmare. So you got to find that happy balance between, I can give them, X amount of drag out of my spinning reel, but the rest of that's going to be made up for that 7'6" moderate rod that's really going to just ease it. So when he turns his head and dives at the same time doing head shakes, I've got 7 feet 6 inches to take up a lot of that stress.
And you're talking the spinning rod, right, Sean? The 763.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, like, and the power and action go kind of hand in hand too. So like, the heavier the power, the heavier the bait you can throw. The lighter the power, the lighter the bait you can throw. If you use an underpowered rod, you're just going to be fatigued all day long because the rod's not helping you do the work. You're doing a lot more of it to, keep up for the rod's deficiencies, I guess. And then if you're using too heavy of a rod, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to cast lighter stuff. It's not going to be efficient. It's not going to be good for you too. So it kind of goes hand in hand too. What do you got, Christian?
Well, I think you brought up a really interesting point, and this is what I don't think enough people pay attention to this, but I am always looking at ounce rating. I am looking at ounce rating on the rod, and I'm trying to find a sweet spot. If there's a lure that I'm throwing, try to find something that sits within the range of the ounce rating on the rod. I think that's hugely important. I mean, that's where the rod is going to perform like a high performance machine. Like, you're not going to just flood a gas tank on a Ferrari, like you want to have that optimal pickup. And like the way to do that is to, obviously the rod can throw the full range and sometimes even more than that. I mean, that's a whole other story, but generally speaking, you want to stay within that center part of that range to really kind of flex the optimal performance of the rod. So I'm always looking in conjunction with what you said at ounce rating as well.
Yes.
So I want to real quick before we go down too far, I do want to address Alex's question here just real quick and kind of move on since we were talking about that 763. So go to the next one, Sean. Yeah.
Like, was it the self-defense
Yeah.
one?
So Alec asked a good question, right? Sean was talking about the 763 spinning rod, which is arguably one of his favorite and also my favorite rod.
I love that rod.
It's a really awesome rod.
Free for that reason.
But Alec was asking about kind of like the lipless crankbait rod. And so I will say, right, the lipless crankbait rod is going to be the 763 moderate fast. That was designed by John Pearl. John Pearl is out on the West Coast. He is a hell of a stick, and he is known for rattle trap fishings. Like, so
that rod was designed. It was designed for an LV 500 to fish on Clear Lake. That is the ultimate lipless crankbait rod. I would put that up against any rod out there. It's honestly, if you put on like just a half ounce or even a 3/4 ounce lipless, and you have a good, even a decent bait casting reel on there, like a Corrado or I think I was using like an Abu Xenon, I could spool my reel. I mean, that rod will launch it so far and so effortlessly, and it's because of that moderate fast taper. It loads perfectly, and like again, you don't have to hook set on that. The rod's doing the work.
Yeah. So like that's an easy one too. So like in the Douglas lineup, right, as we kind of talk about this and we move through the night, there's different rods that handle different situations better than others. There's some that will fit numerous bills. And so if you're looking for, I saw another comment here about a jerk bait, right? The 704M. Yeah, you can use it for a jerk bait. I really like the 684F. You can use a 724. You can use a 744 if you like something a little bit longer. Yes, you can use a 704. But the 704 is a wonderful small crankbait or like a square bill rod, that kind of stuff too. But Alec, do not sleep on that 763 moderate fast. Awesome rod. That is what it is designed for. 100%, nothing else. If you're throwing lipless, go with the 764 MF.
I'm gonna have to try that and get my hands on one, but because I was using the 704 F for that, and I was digging it. It was. And I know it's not like ideal, but wait, no, 704
M.
M. Yeah, I don't know why I said
Yeah.
F.
Yeah,
It's 4M.
it's just it's too short, so like you don't get the cast length that you're looking for, right? So like the way that those
That's right.
the lipless baits go through the air, like yes, I know, Sean, you can cast it. I bet you $1 million I can cast this lure over those mountains, Uncle Rico, whatever, Uncle Rico. Okay. But in all seriousness though, right, like that 763 MF was specifically designed for that technique. Will it work with other techniques? Yes. There's other rods too, right? So when we talk about technique specific rods that were purpose built for like a hyper specific technique, the 683 XF spinning is the blade bait rod. That was designed in conjunction with Mike Urema from I1 Baits, who made that 683 specifically for throwing his blade baits, for action, the whole 9 yards, right? And so yeah, so Northeast bass fishing, anytime you're talking about the rod model, it could be in the LRS and the X Matrix. Some are offered in both. Some are offered in only one model, whether it's the LRS or the X Matrix. But if you find it in the LRS, X Matrix, or the Era, it will fit the bill all the way down throughout the lineup. So it could be both.
The X Matrix, because it's just because of the blank material, it's a little faster rod in general. The LRS is a little bit more moderate. That's the only difference. And obviously the X Matrix is lighter. But yes, they're exactly what Sean said. They're the same tapers. One more thing, it's worth noting. The 703 is a sleeper rod too. The 703 MF is a huge jerkbait rod out here in the Midwest too. It's got an unbelievable taper, and that's like Scott Dobson kind of flip flops here between the 684 F and the 703 MF. And the 703 MF is a sleeper rod. It's also a phenomenal crankbait rod. I mean, if you have that one and the 704 and the 763, you're pretty much set on treble, like on cranks, you know. You can do
703 MF, is that LRS only?
That's X Matrix too.
Really? I just looked. I didn't see it.
Yeah, 703 is in the X Matrix. It's the casting.
Oh, damn. I didn't scroll all the way down. I'm an idiot. Yep, 703 MF. Hey, I'm smart. I need that. I think I got that. Is that the one I just asked for?
I think you have it too. I think you have it too, actually.
Now I gotta
try for jerkbaiting.
What I just asked for.
It's interesting.
Because I wanted another rod for jerkbaits, and I was looking at that, and I'm like, I think I need this.
I kind of played around with jerkbaits and went from. I started with the 704 moderate, and to me, it was just too. It was too spongy feeling.
It is.
So like, because when you're jerkbait fishing, right, you want like minimal rod movement to kind of impart the zigzag action for the jerkbait. And what I found is like it felt just a little too soft. Like for me, it was like a spongy feeling that I needed to like work the rod a little bit more than I should have, instead of like just little kind of like rod ticks down or up or to the side, whatever. I felt like I really needed to kind of get after it. And it was just like this spongy feeling that I didn't really like. It like wasn't a super responsive feeling. So now I reserve that for like any like small square bills that I fish. And I do not fish a lot of crankbaits at all, but that's the rod that I use for that stuff.
That's correct.
Yeah. The 684 is what I found has worked the best. I went from the 704 to the 724 to the 684, and the 684 for me is just, it's really nice. It's a light rod. It's short, and a lot of guys like a shorter rod for the jerk baits, but it's just time on the water. You know, you can go with the 724, 703, 704, or the 684. I just found the 684 was, between that and the 724 was the best ticket for me. So
see, now I feel like the 684 F for my 110s and a 703 MF for my 110 plus ones. And
so I'll throw even the plus twos on the 684. Okay, good. I don't mind it at all. I mean, I think it's like, it's soft enough to kind of not pull those delicate, sticky megabass hooks out.
Definitely.
It's still powerful enough to I guess, have that like responsiveness with minimal tip movement when you're kind of snapping the tip down and taking the slack out of the line. So
it has the right tip to impart the right movement on the jerkbait, and then it really does have a multi-loading blank. Like, I mean, with a fish, like if you look at the bend on it, it looks like it shuts off kind of like, you know, where you expect it to for a fast rod, but then with a fish on, it really does become a parabolic stick, so it keeps those trebles pinned. So that's one inherent quality of Douglas rods that I think, you know, makes it stand out from the masses. It does have a multi-loading blank, so pretty sweet.
So one of the things before we go too far into like technique specific stuff that I kind of want to talk about, right? Like there's a lot of rods out there that will have a like a medium moderate or medium fast or medium heavy, moderate fast, or like so on and so forth. And it's not just Douglas, this is all rod companies out there. But I want to talk about how the power and the action, while they're two different things, right? They really do come together to kind of make the perfect rod for whatever bait or whatever technique you're choosing. So I want to talk about that because I feel like that's something for a lot of people that gets very confusing as you step up in power and slow down the action or speed up the action, and what that does, with what you're throwing. So I know it's kind of a very wide target to kind of hit that I just gave you, but if Sean or Christian want to start and kind of just dive into that a little bit.
Allow me for a second. All right, this is going to be a little difficult, everybody, because the input threshold, the pickup threshold of my mic is set in such a manner that it minimizes how much it picks up from people like sitting on either side of me. But
if you tell me what rod you're using, Christian and I will sit here, we'll play telephone, and we'll just speak for you. It'll be like, whose line is it anyways?
So what I'm thinking, like to really demonstrate kind of power, and then where action comes in at the same time, like it's hard to explain for you, but visually I feel I can do a pretty good job of explaining this. And what the hell rod did I just pick up? Good, 715F. So 7-1, medium heavy, fast. No. Yes.
7 foot 1 inch, medium heavy, fast.
Come here, you. So power. The more power you get, the further up that rod that it's going to come before it truly starts to deflect. Action, it's, the less action you get, that deflection point comes back from the tip further and further down the rod. So what does that look like if you have a high power, low action tip? The amount of deflection you get on the tip becomes more and more significant, but your power band on this stays up still pretty high. So imagine that you could have from the reel grip all the way back to here, very, very little bend. And then you're going to notice a real good break somewhere up in that close to the top third before the tip really, really deflects, right? So, you're talking high power, slow action, versus if you've got high action, low power, then only just barely the tip of that is going to deflect first. And then like the whole rod kind of starts to bend from there. I don't know. I mean, like
the heavier, so pick up that rod again, Sean, like where your left hand is right there. So if this was a light rod or a medium light rod, that rod is going to start bending slightly towards the handle of the rod, right? So where the reel sits, as you load it up with like a heavier weight. So it's going to start to bend there in a light or medium light, and then a medium, and then a medium heavy. So the heavier it goes, there's not going to be any rod bend close to the handle. So it's going to move further away from that handle towards Sean's right side there, right, as it gets heavier. So a lot of times when you hear someone talk about like backbone of a rod, or it's like a broomstick, broomsticks don't bend, right? Like backbone is something that's meant to signify like there's a lot of strength to it. It's very strong, it's very durable. And so that's where the power starts to happen. It happens from the handle out towards the tip. But it also correlates to like the size of bait and the weight of the bait that you're kind of throwing. If you have
loading up some rods on the wall to really show, I think we need to show two very different examples here where, one is Low power.
Throw the 6103. So throw the 6103 up there if you have that.
Okay.
Or grab the lightest rod that you have, Sean.
You keep talking while I grab that.
Okay. So essentially what we're going to look to do is grab like a very, very light rod and kind of show you how deep the rod can kind of bend into the blank. And then we're going to work all the way up to what people kind of call like a broomstick, something that's going to be very, very heavy and something that's going to be capable of throwing giant baits, and being able to handle really, really large, powerful fish. You're not going to want a musky fish on a light or medium light or medium, right? Like even a medium heavy, you'd have a hell of a time doing it. So, we'll be able to kind of talk about it as Sean gets a rod loaded up here. I'm going to pick another question here too, just to kind of get it out of the way. I'm going to just go off and let's see here. Michael Bradley, no, Douglas will not have anyone at the Thruway Sporting Goods annual fishing show. Illuminati suggestions, and Christian, I already know where I'm going with this one, but I'll say it too. Illuminati asks, any suggestions on a 7.6 rod for smaller glide baits in the $100 to $150 range?
Well, dude, I mean, we got a massive. Can I drop that?
Well, hold on a second. Let's talk about the rod first.
765.
Okay. So, but there's a difference, right?
765F. 765F.
We started just picking off some easy comments here. So, could you just pin Illuminati's question real quick? Any suggestions on a 7.6 rod, smaller glide in the 1 to 150 range? We're kind of touching on that one real quick while you're getting loaded up here. So there's one rod specifically that just like it's just made for it. Unfortunately, you're only going to find that specific rod in the X Matrix lineup. We'll talk a little bit about some stuff that we've got going on at Douglas in a little bit, but specifically for smaller glides, 7.6, that 765F. There's two 765 rods. There's an extra fast and a fast, and the fast is rated 3/4 to 3 ounces, and that is the rod, the only rod for throwing smaller glides. I have a Clutch Eco that lives on that, and I was fortunate enough to pick up some of the throwback Metros, and so those are going to have a place on the 765F. But hands down, no questions asked. Till the day I die, I'll take it to my grave. The 765F is the only rod, Illuminati.
Well, I'm gonna agree with that 90% and say there's one challenger to that rod too, the 780, and this is
784.
The 784F, which is actually a medium rod that you could fish a muskie on. Strangely, it is such a weird outlier rod. It will handle up to 2.5 ounces. It's got an unbelievable backbone. And actually, on Sean Miller's boat, I was using that rod to throw 7-inch Scottsboro soft baits with a 10-aught beast hook and sticking fish on it. I mean, that's a medium power rod, but it again allowed a fish to eat a moving bait and had enough backbone to where I could absolutely hammer. And Sean is my witness, and that's one of the ones that's a great kind of versatile rod that can throw both hard baits and soft baits because it's got enough bend to pin trebles, very similar to the 765 in that way, but it's got a little bit more of a tip section, and it really is a medium. So that's a weird one. But
it's got a little bit more bend, kind of like deeper into the blank there. Right?
Yes.
Versus the medium heavy. But
yes,
in the 7.6 length, there's
yes.
I have a 784 rod out here, by the way.
The 784 is phenomenal. All right,
phenomenal.
so Sean,
I have
make
the 6103 XF in a spinning. I couldn't find the casting.
that's fine.
And I had the 684F in a casting. So what would you rather show first?
Go 610.
610.
Go 610 in the spinning, and let's go through it and set that thing up there, and then we'll just work up. While he's not here next to the microphone to defend himself, I will just say how fortunate we are to have such a beautiful model here to model these rods here for everyone.
Look at those hands.
So thank you very much, Sean Snover, for being our guinea pig here.
He could have been in Zoolander.
All right. Am I going 7 ounces on the end of this, or should I back up a little bit?
Oh no, 7 ounces. That 610 will handle the biggest. I mean, I caught a giant pike on that thing up on Champlain.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
That was when we were battle testing the eras before they hit the market.
That's right.
I'm going the wrong way.
That's great to see that, actually.
That's really nice. So, Sean, what are we looking at here, Sean?
So this is the 6103F. XF, sorry.
Yep, that's okay. So that is the spinning version. So that's the 610 medium light extra fast, which is a phenomenal rod. A lot of guys that like a shorter rod like throwing a minnow on that.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the perch guys too, like dragging around a little ball head with a paddle tail on that thing. That is like the preferred rod for a lot of the panfish guys because it's super sensitive. You can very easily set a small jig style hook in the fish's mouth. So that is a deadly setup right there. It's one of my favorites, honestly. So where do you start to see that really bend? So let's talk about power real quick, Sean. So from the butt end up the rod towards the tip, right? So like you can kind of start to see it, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a medium light. So this is going to be more kind of like your finesse. You're not throwing anything really heavy. That medium light rod is really, it's rated 1/8 through 7/16 of an ounce. So that is something that you're just throwing small stuff on, but very capable of landing large fish on it.
So I'm not sure how well you can hear me, but it's got good power all the way up through to about here before it really starts to deflect, and then it really demonstrates your action up in here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, Sean, take that weight and just pull down on the tip section just a little bit so you can kind of see it bend a little bit more, right? So like the extra fast tip, you're going to start to see a lot of that bending. There's more movement in that first, right there and up towards the tip. There's a lot of movement there. So that's where that extra fast kind of comes into play. If you kind of draw it where it kind of goes straight down, it's going to be a little bit closer to the tip.
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of where you get that extra fast. And then the fast, if there's a 6103 fast, and that's going to move towards the butt end to Sean's right a little bit as you kind of move in. And that's where that fast is going to kind of come into play. Right. And so on and so forth.
But
all right, let's go
this
ahead.
Really shows like for that, medium power, the most deflection you get, like you said, up here with that extra fast action. But it really, it's taken all the way down to almost in here where it's deflecting. It's not deflecting much, but it is deflecting almost the whole rod, even really from this guide. This guide is still moving. So it really gives you an idea of that lower power, just how much of that rod is supple to play with you.
Yeah, I mean, if you really yank on it too, Sean's got 7 ounces of weight on there, but if we catch a 7-ounce fish, you're not taking that to the scales, right? So when you catch a giant fish on it, as Sean pulls down on that, I mean, he's not going to hurt the rod, but you can start to see it's bending even further than that last guide. And so that's where you really start to see it when you're catching large fish. That medium light rod is definitely going to bend very, very far into the blank there.
Yeah, it absorbs the shock of surging. I mean, that rod is that's designed to catch, big smallmouth on finesse gear, and the way to keep them pinned is to have that very action. So you can see what I mean with that multi-loading blank. That thing is bending far down into the blank the harder you pull.
That's being really, truly, you look at it, it's bending all the way down to here.
Yeah.
And I've got this rigged, so it is, I've got this rigged, so it's supported right at the reel seat. So right where you would hold it. I know it's kind of hard to see because it's only on the outside edge of the screen, but the bulk of the support is being right in the middle of the reel seat, and you can't see it. But on the far side, I just have another hook there to keep it from being able to, flip out or pop out of this. So this is truly a one-to-one demonstration of where that power is being distributed.
Go throw that.
Not much.
Throw that 684 on there now.
Yeah, I want you to show them that because we talked about it, and it's such a cool rod.
Yeah, let's start working our way up here as we kind of go through. And that 684 is going to come into play too, because it's jerkbait season up here in the Northeast for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Most fun time.
What do I do with it?
Uh-oh.
Is that this one? Yep. So same deal, right? Hooked right in the middle of the reel seat. Woo! Ain't that a thing of beauty?
So, but one of the things too, and I wish we could almost like take a dry erase and draw on this too, right? But like you can see the bend, right? So it doesn't.
You keep talking. I'm gonna go grab one.
Okay.
I might be able to do that.
Okay. So you can kind of see here that this is the 684. So this is that jerkbait rod that we were talking about. But on this rod here, if you look at the tip isn't pointing at the ground as much as that extra fast rod was. So you're going to get a little bit slower of an action here, being a fast, and we're stepping up in power too. So it's not going to bend as far down into that blank there, but the tip section is definitely not pointing at the ground as much as. Does it erase?
For the most part.
Okay.
I don't care about this banner. It's an old banner. It's fine.
Love it.
So
you just turn it upside down. Just draw like against the rod. Go ahead, Sean. Just let it sit on the 7 ounces. Just let the 7 ounce sit, and then just put the marker right up against the rod and just kind of draw it, right? So then you can kind of see where the other rods are kind of bending, and it'll give you a really good kind of visual representation as we step up here in the powers and different actions of where it kind of bends. Yeah. I mean, we're definitely going to see it when we start going to different rods here. But we were just talking about, Sean, like kind of how that tip section bends. It's a little bit slower than that extra fast. And so you start to see it kind of bending. The tip doesn't point to the floor the way that 6103 did. I love it.
Beautiful.
What rod you got next? Sean, pull out. You got the 715F, correct?
Damn right I do.
Yeah, so this is going to be a good one too, because now we're stepping up into a slightly longer rod. But you're also stepping up into a medium heavy versus the medium. Same action, just we're increasing the power here. Increasing the power and increasing the length. And so this will be really cool to see kind of how it bends. Love it.
This is exactly why this is one of my favorite jig rods, because I've talked about this 1,000 times. It is just supple enough that if you want to get close quarters with a jig rod, like up under docks or trees or whatever the case, but like, I mean, close. Like, you're burning down the bank, you're 20 feet off a dock, and you're just flipping and pitching a jig or whatever, whatever you want as quickly as you can into everything. You can do that with this because it's just supple enough to be dangerously accurate. It's a little sniper rod, but look at how much backbone you've got. So that when you hammer on them and you need to pull them up out of there, you can do it. This is my favorite jig rod because it can do both of those things so damn well. Shut up, Sean.
The general public will never know what I said to him.
I like it.
You see, Christian, you see Ryan's in here too, asking who the dude in the shipping container is. That's Christian. Christian's in the shipping container.
Dude, yeah, totally, man.
So you can see the difference between the two. They're both fast actions, but they're both different powers. And so what's really cool about this is you have a very, very similar tip bend. As you see where the tip kind of bends, it's a similar bend to it up in the tip, but it's definitely a little bit more powerful, right? Which means that it's holding that 7 ounces a little bit higher on that backdrop there. So it definitely has a little bit more strength to it. It's bending less, but really cool to kind of see.
Pull it down just so you can see with a little bit more. See, it's still shut off pretty good. I mean, That's really yeah. It's a very popular chatterbait rod too, believe it or not. So
it's interesting too because for
no. I gotta jump on that. hang on. Hold that thought. Let me bring it back here. So this goes perfectly with a comment that our buddy DJ 3D Fishing threw in there. Let me find. What was Kyle Patrick talking about for chatterbait rods?
745. The only 2 rods he fishes are the 745 casting and the 744 spinning. Just take him out of this because he's a weirdo and he only throws 2 rods. I mean, Kyle's awesome and he's a hell of a stick, but like he's very strange when it comes to rod preferences. So
yeah, but oh my God. All right. So sleep has not been good for me. And I've been having the hardest time remembering names, like even people I talk to on almost a daily basis. Jimmy Reese. When I was down at ICAST in 2023, stopped by the Douglas booth, was talking to everybody, was talking to Jimmy Reese, and we got talking about chatterbaits. And he said, well, what rod do you like throwing it on? And at the time, I had not yet switched from one of my Lewis rods to a Douglas rods for this because I didn't find one I liked yet. I said, dude, I like a 7.2 heavy fast. And he was like, well, why? I'm like, because it's a big hook. It's like a big jig. I want to be able to hammer him. And he was like, yeah, but you can't really let it hunt on a rod that heavy. Said, I never thought about that, but I never considered it to be an issue. But that conversation stuck with me because I wasn't entirely sure that he was right or wrong, or just it was a different perspective, but it stuck with me. And we were up on Lake Champlain last year, and we got onto and when I say we, I really mean my buddy David Roy, who's in the chat, NE Bass Addict, got into like an insane chatterbait bite. He did, not me. And at that point, I was using a couple of different rods. So I had tried the 744F and the 765F, and I didn't like either one. The 765F was okay. The 744, I didn't like it. I lost too many fish. And that was just
744.
Yep. So then I went to braid, and I did a lot better, but it still didn't feel right. So I went back to that 7.2 heavy fast from Lewis. And so we were up there on Champlain, and he's kicking the crap out of me. He's up 10-1. And I'm thinking like, okay, like at that point, this is now day 4. I have already switched over literally everything that I'm doing to match exactly what he's doing. Line weight, gear ratio, exact color and weight of the jackhammer, exact same trailer, like everything. The only difference was different rod, power and action. So he casts it and just slow rolls it, and I tried it. He's got the rod tip there, so like I can see it easily. He's like, look at this. And I could see the bait was hunting. So now that whole conversation with Jimmy Reese comes back. And I'm like, shit. all right, you're onto something there. And now I'm looking at my rods, and I knew I couldn't pick up that 744 because I'd lost too many fish, and my confidence was not going to allow me to pick it up. I looked at my 715F, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to try that. Not even kidding. First cast, hooked up. 2 casts later, hooked up. Handful of casts after that, hooked up. Mm-hmm. It made all the difference in the world. I still think that because of limited, I guess, research, for lack of a better way to put it, that jury is still out whether or not that matters the majority of the time. However, outliers in situations where he was clearly out fishing the crap out of me, like, yes, there are definitely outlier situations where your rod power and action will absolutely matter on what kind of moving bait you're doing, and especially a bladed jig that wants to hunt. That 715F was fucking phenomenal for it. Dude, that thing let that jackhammer hunt like a champ. But then when I got bit, and this is just on straight 15-pound fluorocarbon, the 15.5 heavy cover from Defiant, I could hammer him and keep him pinned, and I didn't lose a single fish on that rod. So very long story, but a very important one to really kind of show, like, does it really matter? I had use cases where it didn't matter, and then when it really did matter, boy, did it friggin' matter. And just goes to show the benefit of making sure that you get the right rod power and action, and even length, I would say, to an extent, how much it all comes into play together to really make the best bang for your buck for the technique that you're throwing on it.
So there's a couple different rods here, and depending on which camp you're in for chatterbait rods, the 764 is a really awesome chatterbait rod for a lot of people. And so it's
MF, the 764 MF.
MF. There's a there's an MF and there's an F. The moderate fast
764F here.
The 764 moderate fast is a really good chatterbait rod. A lot of people like throwing the chatterbait on that. I don't know. I mean, I've got a chatterbait tied onto the 765 extra fast. I'm a weirdo, but I kind of like that little bit of extra length there with kind of the extra fast tip. I don't need the extra fast tip. It just happens to be a soft enough rod to kind of feel a little bit of that vibration and also give me the hook penetration that I'm looking for. But the 764 is an awesome chatterbait rod, and a lot of guys will swear by that for chatterbaits. But when you're talking like the 715 versus the 745, those two rods, I feel like if you're only gonna own 2 Douglas casting rods, you need a 715 and a 745. Those are kind of a jack of all trade, do it all. You can do everything. Some things better than others, but those 2 rods are kind of like a do it all rod. I mean, I will argue, Douglas put out a post a couple weeks ago at this point, and it was interesting to kind of watch and see what everyone's thoughts were. But they put out, if you could only use one rod for the rest of your life, what would it be? For me, I chose a 744 casting as the rod of choice. Wow. Which is kind of an outlier there, right? But like, it can throw a jerkbait. It can throw a jig. It's not going to be the best jig rod. It can do it. If you have like a small sticky hook, it could do it. But I mean, I've done a lot on that rod. I'll throw like little underspins or like screw locks, belly weighted swim bait hooks on that thing. You can throw a spinnerbait on it. You can throw a chatterbait on it. You can throw, I mean, you name it. For me, that's kind of the jack of all trade if I were to only have one single rod. Wow. But as far as, do it all, the 715, 745. Christian, what do you think?
I think that's those are 2 very, very versatile rods in the lineup. I think the 745 is definitely the do it all rod in the lineup. But I think you're right. I think the 715 can accomplish it too. I don't disagree with that. I'm too much of an option paralysis, like too much of a dialed in maniac to ever do something so crazy as to fish one rod. So I don't know if I'm the right guy to ask, but I do agree with that. Those are 2 of the most versatile and popular rods in the lineup that can fish pretty much any technique. You're covering 99% of everything. Will it do it the best? Certain techniques the best? Probably not, but it'll do it good enough to land a lot of fish. So, or
Yeah.
both of them will. So, yes. I agree with
Good
you.
enough to be deadly, you know? You don't need to know everything. You just need to know enough to be dangerous.
I think those are the two, definitely.
There we go. I'm back. There you
Which
go.
one's that?
You get the 684F at the bottom, the 715F in the middle, and your 764F you were just talking about that's on there right now.
Oh.
So I can absolutely understand why you said that could be really good for a chatterbait rod.
The MF too, though.
Which I don't have. You did say F.
But that's okay. The F. There's two. There's a 764F and a 764MF. The 764F can do it. It's a great rod. A lot of different options.
You know, we're talking about power and action and how everything kind of comes in to play with one another. And, I know that some rods were specifically designed for very specific techniques, or at least that was the target technique, right? But that doesn't mean it has to be the only thing you can, use that for, or that other rods can't do really well as well. So, and then the more I look at this, the more I really like the idea of that for a jackhammer rod, because you've still got plenty of power on it. I mean, the casting distance on this is going to be nuts. If you wanted to go straight fluorocarbon, even if it's a little bit lighter, and you wanted to hammer them, you've got all that rod to really help take up a lot of your slack on your line if they hit it running at you. But I'm looking at the action, and even though they're all fasts, I feel like the action on that, it's hard to explain. It's spread out a little bit. It's one.
But that's a 764F, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes,
So
that can also work as that's a sleeper rod that no one even knows exists in the lineup. That's also a great chatterbait rod. That's also a great jig rod. That's also a great walking bait rod. That's a great spook rod.
There you go. Now you're talking. And I can see where that is too, because I'm looking and that guide right above where I wrote the 764F. That's kind of that breaking point for you can kind of get that flimsy action out of the tip for, if you, I don't know, putting it in kind of like a really silly way, you know what I mean? But you've got, what is that? About a foot of that rod tip that I feel like can really deflect and play around a little bit. That's going to allow that hunting action on a jackhammer. So I'm not I completely agree with you guys. I'm just trying to phrase it in a manner that my brain understands as to why I agree that it makes sense that would be good for that specific technique. It's things like this I'm trying to look at more myself as I look at different rods for different techniques and challenge myself to be like, well, I've always done it this way. Is that the best way? Could I be doing this better? Could I improve on what I'm doing to get more out of what I'm doing to improve the number of catches that I get because I'm maximizing the efficiency of what I'm throwing on that rod?
So I'm gonna challenge your brain here real quick because you have a 765 extra fast. Go get that because it's the same length as the 764.
Yes.
Go put it up there, Sean.
I've already got it.
Go put it up there. So this is gonna be great because now we're gonna see two rods, one right after another, that are exactly the same length.
Yes.
But different powers and different actions.
Yes.
And so with that same weight.
Hang on, I gotta go X matrix to X matrix.
Yes.
Definitely.
What was that first rod that you had up, Sean?
I had an LRS up to begin with. It's on the ground. It's a 765 XF, but it was an LRS.
Perfect.
Now I got X matrix. Stay. Load her up. Oh. I gotta move.
What is it, like an inch or like a centimeter off? I can't tell.
Just about, not by much.
Yeah, barely anything.
This is your other line. This breaks just a little bit less. Hey, gotcha. Look how close that is.
Very close. So the ounce rating, if I remember correctly, the ounce rating on the 764F is up to 2 ounces, and on that one it's 1.25 ounces.
764 is 5/16 to 2 ounce.
Okay.
And the 765 is 5/16 to 1 1/4.
Okay. Which is really from the extra fast tip.
So this is off just a little bit because that 764 had a slightly longer handle.
Oh, okay.
If I pick it up just a little bit, I mean, there's still, no, that's fine. It still pretty clearly demonstrates the difference, albeit minor, but the difference between the two.
Yeah, it's just a little heavier.
It's really that tip section too, though. Like, I mean, that's where you're gonna feel it the most. Like that 765X XF. If you're walking a frog, you know, you're not doing as much to impart the action. It'll be more crisp.
Yeah. I'm gonna unload that. Go.
All right.
I need a better way to do this. Although, I mean, that it worked. It really
So-
showed the
So
difference.
I will say, right, because we can sit here all day and kind of talk about all this stuff. You guys that are watching in the chat here, you guys that are in the comments, do you feel just a simple yes or no will work? Do you feel that you have enough information on power and action for us to move on and answer some questions about bait specific or technique specific rods? Throw some yeses or nos in there. If we see some yeses, we'll move on here and kind of talk about, start to answer your questions, because we see a lot like, what would you throw this on? What would you throw for this? What would you throw for that? I'm looking at the 763. Will this do this? So just kind of throw some comments down here so we can kind of gauge whether or not we've given you enough information. All right, I'm starting to see some yeses here.
I'm grabbing comments in the meantime, so we are ready.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice.
I did see a comment here, DMH8. Can you pick full cork butt ends on any of those rods?
I grabbed that. There it is.
Douglas, this is a quick and easy one here, and Douglas has a couple rod models that have cork. Majority of them are the EVA high density foam grips on the LRS and the X Matrix line. I will say that a lot of people are kind of in the cork camp. They like cork because cork looks nice in the whole 9 yards. Cork gets slippery, cork gets dirty, cork's a pain in the ass to kind of keep clean and take good care of. It can mold, it can rot, it can crumble. When you get a hook in it, it pulls it out and you're destroying the cork. I will say when the EVA high density foam gets wet, it's not slippery. It's comfortable in hand all day long. I was a cork user in G Loomis and you name it, and St. Croix. And I felt like it wasn't, I always thought it was the greatest thing in the world. And then I switched to high density, the EVA foam. And I don't know that I'll ever look back to cork. That's just a personal preference here. The Arrow rods have that cork, that handle, which looks really nice. And the Arrows are solid rods. But I don't think that the cork to me is more of a turnoff at this point, for me personally, than the EVA high density foam that Douglas has on the LRS and the X Matrix. That's my personal opinion on it. You can put hooks in it, rip it out, and you're not destroying the handle. When it gets wet, sweaty, the whole 9 yards, like your hands are not. It's easily cleanable. You could dunk it in water if you want and scrub it. Where cork, I'm not dunking that in water and scrubbing it. You need a magic eraser and it takes you forever and a day. That's just my personal opinion, and I'll open it up because I want to hear what Christian has to say, being a paid employee of Douglas, and I want to hear what Sean has to say too. So, I've got my personal opinion. I already said it. David's not behind you. There's no Alex. You're good. We're good.
I'm not a cork guy at all. I know it looks good and it's more of an eye catcher, I think, and I think people see it and they're like, back in the day, you saw cork, and that's how you knew. I'm getting that rod. It's got cork on it. It must be nice. But I totally agree with everything you said. I think that the high density EVA holds up better. I think it's more comfortable. It can withstand the elements better. It doesn't doesn't transfer the heat or the cold. Always comfortable, but the cork is an aesthetic thing, and if I don't hate cork. You just got to take care of it. If you like taking care of your stuff and you're going to put the time in and seal it up every now and then and clean it down, some people really dig that, and that's part of the whole process of taking care of your gear, and that becomes like a whole thing. So I really think that's a matter of preference. I don't think one is better than the, well, I do, but I get the love for cork. There's no hatred here. I'm with you if you want to go that route.
Yeah. I mean, there's really nothing else I can add to any of that because I agree with both of you. It's just a matter of personal preference. And I don't mind it. Like, I'll fish any of them. I'll fish any of the 4: cork, the high density foam, the wind grips, or carbon fiber, which is what I really like to have on some of my highest end rods because, it's sexy and it's great. But cork is my least favorite option only because of the overall quality in longevity. And I haven't had any issues with any of my other rods made with any other materials on the handles. I've only run into issues with cork, and I've broken a lot of cork over the years. It's just not, I don't know. Maybe I've never fished like a high end rod with cork, so I can't say for certain. I've only fished like kind of lower to like low mid tier rods, price point wise, like 150 or less that have had cork on them. And I have yet to fish one that, the cork held up for more than 2 years, which is still pretty good for, price point you're paying for at that point. We'll see if the ERA rods can kind of shake that trend. And it might be longer than that. Maybe 2 years is being disingenuous, but it's been a while since I've fished cork until I picked up the ERA rods again. And 2 of them now I've had for a full season. Cork still looks phenomenal. So we got another year to beat them up and see how they hold up. But, again, nothing against them. Clearly, because I just picked up, I have the entire lineup of all the ERA rods, and I'm excited to throw them because, for what I fished, for 100 to 120 rods, these are the best rods I've ever used in that price point. So I wanted to continue to use them. I think it's important, for me, what I do with the channel to also continue to share all price ranges on all gear. It doesn't feel right or fair to only be constantly talking about the highest end stuff all the time, even though that's what I prefer. And that's why I try to fill out everything with. I want to be able to show and talk about, have long experience with all of these things. So I'm going to hammer these ERA rods and continue to tell everybody all the good things about them. I don't know. They're
really great. So as you get into the Douglas lineup, for those that are unfamiliar with the Douglas lineup, the Era rods are kind of the entry level, your first bite into Douglas. Those are $100. $100 price point. That's kind of your entry level Douglas rod. They come with a limited lifetime warranty. There's four casting and 2 spinning rods in that lineup. Then you step up into the LRS, and that is kind of the middle of the road. LRS is going to run you anywhere from $189 to $229, depending on the model. And then you get into the X Matrix, and that's kind of the flagship, the upper echelon of the Douglas lineup. And that is anywhere between, really $289 to $359 for the bass fishing conventional rods. You get up into the $369, for some of the longer rods, the
same as steelhead.
Yeah, but for the bass fishing, for the freshwater that we're talking about tonight, you're really looking at $289 to $359. So I will take a pause while we have some people here. And Christian, we alluded to this before. The floor is yours. It's not out there. It's kind of a secret. It's there. It's not there. Maybe it's there. What is going on with Douglas? What can people expect? There's been a big sale going on DouglasOutdoors.com right now, but what is to come here in the coming days? What should people look out for?
Well, it should be dropping tomorrow if all is well, but we have a massive sale on our entire swim bait rod selection. So you can actually get up to 70% off on certain rods in that lineup.
Did you say 70% off?
I said 70%. So remember, we had the that viewer who was really interested in that 765. It would be, with this sale, you're probably looking at $150 price point. This is a limited sale. This will probably never happen again, but we're clearing out some older inventory, and we're just, this is the time to catch big bass. It's the spring. If you're on the fence about getting into the swim bait game, this is the best time to stock up on these rods, and you're going to get a high performance rod for a fraction of the price. So that's the big news. And you just got to insane. You got to keep your eyes peeled on the Douglas website. It should be going live tomorrow.
Yeah, you'll see a couple promotional videos, some paid ads out there on the interwebs and the Google machine there. Yeah, you'll see a couple familiar faces there in some of those videos. But again, some crazy sales on Douglas. If you, and I will say too, right, like there's some pretty insane deals going on in the online segment here. But I would be remiss if I did not say, if you live close to Ben's Tackle Shack, if you live close to Doc's Tackle, if you live close to a local tackle shop that supports anglers and also happens to carry Douglas rods, please do us a favor. Please do them a favor. Do yourself a favor. Go introduce yourself. Say hi if you don't know them. Spend some money at a local tackle shop. It goes miles and miles with the shop owners. It means a lot. They will take care of you day in and day out. There are some great sales going on right now online, but please do not ignore the local dealers that support us and support everyone else on a daily basis. So Dan Kenny's here in the comments. He has done a wonderful job in the Northeast promoting bass fishing with the expos and what he does for anglers and friends. So please do go support him. Go support your local tackle shop. Buy a Douglas rod from those guys.
He's got a great selection too. Great selection of Douglas rods in there.
So go support local too, right? It's cool to save a buck or two, and there's some pretty stupid, crazy deals right now online. But shop local too. Help those guys out. Those are the guys that support you on a daily basis when you're looking for something, when you're missing something for your next tournament or your next time out on the water. So definitely support those guys in the local tackle shops too, because they support you.
You can feel the rods in hand too.
Absolutely.
You can do these.
Answer a bunch of questions for you as well.
Yep.
Right.
All right. Lightning round. We'll get through some of these comments. I realize it's kind of starting late here. What do you mean?
Move on.
Michael Bradley. Question. Will Douglas have a rep at the Thruway Sporting Goods annual fishing show? They are located in Walden, New York.
Not this year.
Okay. Lightning round. See, that was fast. Linda Binda. I'm very surprised we don't see more spiral wrapped rods that come from companies like Shimano, Daiwa, and such. I'm not really familiar with spiral wrapped rods.
Spiral wrapped is where the eyes go around the.
Ew.
Yeah.
No. Ew, brother.
Ew.
For certain technique, like I probably own 15 swim bait rods with spiral wraps. I love them, but it alleviates torque, get a longer cast, less guides. You can control big fish and big baits, I think, a little bit better, but that's a preferential thing. And I think it's too niche right now. You're seeing some companies are offering spiral wraps. It's actually pretty popular. It's getting popular in the float fishing game because there are companies like Nova Tackle that are actually making casting float rods, and those are spiral wrapped. So those are stock rods that are spiral wrapped. So yes, for certain techniques, and again, JDM, like if you're looking at a depths, some of the high end depths rods, like the real expensive, like $600 or $700 ones, those will actually come spiral wrapped, double foot guides, and those are like meant to throw big baits. I have quite a few of those, and they're pretty sweet. So
Nice.
that's
All right. There you go. Hey, I learned something new today. Although I do recall on one of the saltwater guide trips that I did, like chartered, I did use a spiral wrapped rod.
yes, right.
All right, neat. Next, Mark, how about spinning for throwing a jerk bait in the Douglas line? I bought the ERA 7-foot medium. I was just looking at the LRS 763 XF on your website. Ooh.
Go ahead, Christian.
I mean, that can definitely work. That's the right action for sure. I would look also, I mean, I would look at the 683 XF, the 610 XF, the 724 XF, the 744 XF, or that one. I think
the 763 is too long for a jerkbait for the way the majority of people throw it. If you're going to kind of like jerk the rod to the side, 763 fine. But when you're tipped down on the boat, right? Tipped down on the boat going like this, the 763 tends to be a little bit too long for majority of people because they're not tall enough to stand up on their deck. And that rod's going to like be splashing the water the whole time. So
I agree with that.
You may get some sunfish that are trying to eat your rod tip as you're jerking the rod, but whatever. Go pet the sunnies.
Maybe if he's bank fishing though, and he's looking for further distance, maybe that's where that can come into play. I don't know.
Yeah, 763 would not be my choice.
Definitely,
I would pick up a 7 or a 6103 in the fast or the extra fast before I touch the 763 for a jerkbait.
It depends on where you're bank fishing. If you're bank fishing up here anywhere in the Northeast, absolutely not would I take that longer rod, the 763, because it's nothing but trees around here. Bank fishing down in Florida, different story, right? There's nothing but grass down there and a lot of kids. So you're able to walk around all those ponds and friggin' launch that thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think anybody from here is watching for Florida. Mark had another question. What is the number one selling Douglas rod? Even I'm curious about this.
Definitely the
715. 745. I was going to go, I guess.
745 on the casting, probably 704 on the spinning.
Nice. Okay. Noted. Michael Bradley, what do you feel makes Douglas stick out in what seems to be a crowded market?
Christian, you can't answer this yet. We're going to go around here, right? Because you're the sales guy, so you're just going to give us some bullshit sales excuse right now.
Hey, guys, want to buy a rod?
Yeah, okay. Hold on a second.
All I care about is
support Christian. I'm gonna make Snover answer this one first here, then I'll go, and then we'll let Christian. Christian is an angler, but also as a sales guy. I mean, yes, he's got skin in the game here too, but he'll answer honestly because he's got other rods that he fishes on a regular basis that aren't Douglas too. So, with that being said, like Snover, what makes it stick out to you? Because you've used a lot of different rods. I mean, I've used a lot of different rods. I have right now.
I have to be careful with this because there's only so much I can say to this where it really has meat to it, because I'm big on like overall comparisons, right? And having a lot of experience with a number of different things to be able to draw a lot of level-headed comparisons from one to the next to the next. And that mid-tier game, the LRS, and especially now the ERA rods for Douglas, to me is what I feel stands out, because the overall performance of those rods, both in sensitivity, overall balance, and overall weight for that price point, for my experience, what I've used is unparalleled. Now, I have to add the caveat, because I'm always big on, being very, very direct and honest with everybody. My experience is nowhere near as extensive as a lot of other people, so it has to be taken with a little bit of a grain of salt, right? But I have used a lot of different rod models, anywhere from that $150 to $250 range, and especially a lot in that $100 range when I was younger and had a lot less money. And again, like, I still think, bar none, in that range, they definitively are better than the vast majority of companies out there. Now, the X Matrix rod, I still think it's the best high-end rod I have ever used in that price point, right? I'm not going to put it up against a Mega Bass rod that I've used, that my friends have used, because it's a totally different price point, right? So you cannot make those direct one-to-one comparisons because it's not a one-to-one. of the few rods that I've used from different companies in that X Matrix price range, we'll say about 325 ish, give or take $20. I still think it's one of the best performing rods that I've used. It's a perfect combination of overall performance and, again, weight and balance. The sensitivity on it is phenomenal. I go back to a previous comment. I do the best I can to try and showcase as many different rods at different price points as I can, even with reels, everything I fish from Lose. But everything finesse that I do, and especially bottom contact, I am sorry. I need X Matrix in my hand because it's just so good that even though the LRS is still really good and the ERA is really good, the X Matrix is that much better than anything else I've ever used that I don't want to use anything else. It's just so damn good for that price point. So that, to me, that's what really helps stand out. Out of everything I've used in all those, Douglas has been the best bang for your buck and overall performance above everything else I've used. I don't know how else to put that without starting to repeat myself.
So I'll piggyback on a little bit of what you said, but I'll also cast off here somewhat. Maybe some people may call it a somewhat controversial opinion on Douglas rods here, but I'm not afraid to say it. X Matrix, sensitivity wise, balance, feeling, weight, like the way that it feels in your hand, it's very light. It's very agile. It's very sensitive. It's well balanced. It fishes exceptionally well. What stands out to me that makes a difference is that there was a lot of time and effort spent in each rod model and what the rod model will do, what it'll throw, what kind of bait you're throwing with each rod. So I think it's a very purpose-built platform in each rod model. That to me is what makes it stand out. It's not just cookie cutter. We got to have a 7-foot. We got to have a 7.2. We got to have a 7.6. It's got to be a medium heavy, a medium, a heavy in all those different lengths. Douglas doesn't really, in my opinion, fit into that mold where we got to have a 7-foot medium heavy, and a heavy that also has a fast and an extra fast and this and that, because people want a 6.6 medium heavy, and see, people want this and people want that. Douglas is purpose built. I won't say that Douglas doesn't care about your thoughts or your feelings, because they do. They're a small family run company in upstate New York here, just outside of Syracuse. Douglas absolutely cares about you, but Douglas cares about providing you with the best fishing experience possible with the right gear in your hand. Douglas does a wonderful job of building rods for a specific purpose. That's what I like about Douglas. What I like about Douglas is they do not have exposed threads on their reel seats. So your fingers are not sitting against exposed threads when you tighten your reel down. There's a lot of major big brand manufacturers out there that have exposed threads that are uncomfortable. There's sharp edges on their, reel seats, or, the grips that hold the reel onto the rod that don't feel comfortable. While they look cool, they're not super functional. And spending a day or two on the water, it really shows what actually matters. I've had some of those rods. I will not mention brands. I don't need to. But everyone knows when you screw down the reel, to cinch a reel down onto the reel seat, there's exposed threads. That's not comfortable for a finger or hand to be on all day. I don't care who you are. It's just not comfortable. Douglas is, they're all hidden. They're not exposed. You have an EVA, or in the Arrow lineup, you have cork that's covering it. It's very comfortable. I will say what makes Douglas stand out to me, and I think that it's something that, between Christian's efforts, for sure, 100%. I mean, he's really poured his heart and soul into what he's done over the past couple of years. But also, listen, I don't mean to get thank you, heartfelt with this message here, but Christian's done a wonderful job kind of preaching the gospel and spreading the word of Douglas. I've worked hand in hand with him to get footage, to go to shows, to talk about Douglas, to put Douglas rods in people's hands and allow them to try a Douglas rod and let them form their own opinion and make their own decision. Douglas, and I hope I don't get myself into trouble saying this, but Douglas does not do a really wonderful job marketing themselves in a overcrowded market. Douglas does they do 100% do a wonderful job of making a rod that outperforms majority of rods in an oversaturated market. They just do not do a great job marketing that. And that's something that Christian has spent a whole hell of a lot of time and effort into changing the perception of and changing what is out there in Douglas. And so I think that as it gains momentum, as more people in the comments here, as more people come to the expos and see us at the Douglas booth, that makes a difference, that makes the change, that spreads the word. More people are fishing Douglas. More people know about Douglas in the Northeast than have ever known about Douglas in the Northeast. It's gaining traction. It's kind of a grassroots marketing effort. That's what makes Douglas stand out to me. It's not necessarily the best answer. Douglas is not a marketing machine. These other big companies, they're marketing machines. They're sales guys. They don't care about you at the end of the day. Douglas does. You have an issue with the rod, you call Christian. I won't put your cell phone number up here, Christian, for everyone to see. but if you got an issue, you call Christian, right? I'll put the personal one up there too. We'll put David's cell up there. But they stand behind their product. They stand behind what they're doing. If you have questions, you can ask me. You can ask Sean Snover. You can ask Christian. You can ask so many people who will help you, guide you down this road of rods, answer any questions. The warranty is cut and dry. There's no bullshit. There's no smoke and mirrors. There's no, oh, we'll get you and whatever. There's a quick turnaround. You're talking to a real person sitting in an office at Douglas for the warranty that will get you back on the water. I mean, there's so many different things that I can say about Douglas. I chose to fish Douglas. Douglas did not choose me. Douglas eventually chose me, right, to start to work with them. But like I fished Douglas and I believed in Douglas and what they were doing and their vision long before it was kind of, I was unofficially working, with Douglas. So I know that was very long-winded and whatever, but I think what they do is exceptional, and I think it's worth a look. And hats off to Christian for what he's been able to accomplish in his few years here with Douglas in the Northeast and spreading the word. So that's what sets Douglas apart for me.
Thank you, Sean, for the extremely kind words. And I'll start this off by saying I wouldn't be able to do it without guys like the two Seans here, because we're such a small company. And Sean is right. Like I literally got out in his boat and got, for the sales campaign, most of that content is from being on Sean's boat and being able to like get out there and do it in a real grassroots fashion. And we don't have a big budget. We have almost no budget for marketing. And if it wasn't for guys that are actual real anglers, like these guys are sitting here donating their time and expertise, and unlocking a lot of pearls of wisdom and helping grow this Northeast and bass community and just the overall bass community. They don't have to be doing this, but they're doing it because they love it. And that kind of passion has, I wouldn't be able to do it without that passion. I'm passionate about fishing. I always have been. And, they kind of welcomed me with open arms when I moved up there and started this and try to, turn this perception around. And, and just to speak on the actual performance of the rods, I'm a total rod snob. If you look at my collection, it's all high-end rods. I could have bought a house, but instead I have a storage unit with I
can confirm that.
I should have bought a house, but instead I have all this super high-end gear. And I can honestly say that, like, from a production standpoint and from the price point, even at an X Matrix price point, some of my rods cost $1,000 a piece. Like for some of these high-end, like made in Japan, like a Zanak Lans, that's $1,000, I can honestly say that the Douglas rods, if you're looking at a production rod, they're the lightest and balanced rods that I've fished at that price point. If you want a true NRX killer and you want to pay half the price, pick up an X Matrix, obviously the JWR 852 NRX is one of the most infamous bottom contact rods of all time. Pick up our 704, pick up our 610 3XF. go try those out, put those hand in hand, and tell me if you can really feel that much of a difference between those two rods. And I think our rods cast better than that. And I'm a huge fan of the NRX. I'm not knocking it, but so from a production standpoint, I think you're getting a lot of value for what these rods are. Like Sean said, you're getting unique tapers. Our warranty is unreal. I mean, like, we actually talk to customers. If you have a warranty, it's probably getting out that day or the next day. It's not like some of these bigger companies. We're doing this again with like such a small team, and our shipping department is so locked in. Hats off to like Lewis and Melissa. It's 2 people shipping all this stuff out. And I mean, you know, both of you guys have received the packages. You know what the quality and the care that goes into that your rods are safe. And in the weird case that something isn't safe, it will send you another one. You know, like, we are taking care of the customers. We want to grow. I mean, again, the company has a ton of potential. A lot of love was put into this design. We've got a lot of stuff in the works. And again, without guys like these two really getting out there and putting the stuff through the paces and fishing, and guys like, again, like Dan Kenny and David Lorcher from Doc's Tackle, who are really pushing this brand and believe in it and love fishing the rods themselves. Like this, you know, that speaks volumes. So that's all I'll say about that. But
yeah, I mean, I will say too, to kind of piggyback on what Christian said about the warranty, right? It's a limited lifetime warranty. Douglas is about doing the right thing. It's $50. You break a fish and you slam that thing in a rod locker, it's $50, and you pay the ride, and Douglas will fix it for you. Douglas makes it right. They care about you at the end of the day. They want you with the best gear in your hand at a very good value. It's a small brand. It's just like supporting, you know, Dan Kenny at Ben's Tackle Shack or David Lorster at Doc's Tackle over here by me. It's just like supporting Derek at Beast Coast, right? Derek is a very small, large brand. He is a small business owner. He does it with the skeleton crew. That's the difference of Douglas. Everyone was so high and mighty on that other brand that sold out to another company, and they're in shambles right now.
Yeah, they are. So
Douglas goes the extra mile to take care of you.
Yes, they do. Both very well said. One more question here, unless there's another good one that pops up. It's 9:40. I don't want to take up too much of everybody's time, but I went and looked at the website, and I'm seeing there's quite a lot of friggin' insane sale prices in there right now.
No, perfect.
So, and I saw Drew Santiago was saying, well, I really want a swim bait rod, but I don't want to like spend too much. And I saw that the LRS 805F was 60. I wrote it in the chat, 60 something bucks, 68.70. And then the 805FD was half off, so $114. But Jason asked, so there you go, X Matrix 805F. What do you think? Crankdowns, big saw swim baits. It's currently in my cart. Should I get it? What?
Dude,
Somebody else.
All right.
I will say I could do everything with that rod. I throw a 5-arm day rig on it. I've thrown wake baits on it. I've thrown crawlers. I haven't thrown my depths 250. I feel like it's a little, even though the rod's rated 3 to 7 ounces, it should be able to handle it. It doesn't feel right. I go a little bit heavier on that for my depths or like my 9.5-inch shad glide, but you could do it. Like I've thrown it on it. I was like, no, I got a heavier rod. I'm going to throw that on it instead. I've thrown anywhere from a 5.5 to like a 7.5-inch crank down on it that have ranged anywhere from like 2.25 ounces up to 6 ounces, and it's worked well. I've thrown the Citizen 6-inch, the Citizen 7-inch. I've thrown the Defiant 210 on it and the Defiant 247 on it. I've thrown all those things, and I have felt extremely confident in that 805F to do all of those. That's what I like about that rod so much, because I can do anything. If I want to throw a big soft body single, hook, whether it's a weedless configuration like a beast hook or like the Defiant 210 or 247 where it's a line through, I can throw it on that and I can hammer on them and it's going to hold up to it. If I was throwing any, like, my crank downs, any of my pads, Mr. Tight lines, or my Tom's Custom Baits, like, dude, it doesn't matter. Like, literally anything that's, double triple hook configuration, there's just enough give on it that, like, I'm not kind of wailing on them with those treble hook setups. I'm kind of like a hard lean, and it's just enough give that, like, I don't know, it just works. It feels good. I haven't lost a single fish on that rod with the crank down. And then again, A-rig, it's one of my favorite rods for A-rigs. It's a little bit more stout than my loose Super Duty rods, and then I like those rods. There's a reason why I still keep them around. I do wish the handle was a little bit longer, but that's why I got the 805FD. But even just that regular 805F, dude, that is my A-rig rod. It has been since I got that rod. What, 2 years ago, I think was the first time I got it? Yeah, it's been 2 years I've had that rod.
See, it's interesting too, because the A-rig rod is a 765F. Like, that is the A-rig rod, but it also doubles as a small swim bait, like a small glide bait rod too.
See, and like,
but the 805 will work for sure.
Yeah, I have broken rods. I'll just say that, throwing an A-rig, and sure, makes sense. The 765 is rated for it. I do not feel comfortable or confident doing it.
It'll do it too. Like, one of the most I guess sought after or popular A-rig setups over here is Brown Dog Tackle makes a killer A-rig over here in New York, and everyone throws it on the 765. That's really it. I mean, that I see a comment here. The specs on the 805. The 805 is basically 3 to 7 ounces. So I mean, it'll throw like a lot of stuff. I mean, I don't know that I'd necessarily max it out at the 7 ounce mark. If I have something that's 5.5, 6, 7 ounces, I'm stepping up to the 807.
Yes.
Hopefully, Drew Santiago, hopefully that answers your question a little bit. But it's rated 3 to 7 ounces. It'll throw a heavy bait just fine. I mean, you could throw a 7 ounce bait on it. It's not going to do it the best. The 807 is really going to do it the best, but it'll do it for sure. But 805 will throw a lot of stuff, a lot of big baits.
Yeah, it will. There's something about, like, traditional tackle when you're throwing something weight wise that you're like at the max what the rod's rated against. Like, it, unless it's like a really finessey rod, any sort of traditional casting rod, like, I feel okay with it. I feel comfortable. But when it comes to big swim baits, and I'm knocking on the door of that max weight rating on it with whatever I'm throwing on it, dude, it makes me pucker. I get real scared real fast. I go overkill a little bit on any of my big swim bait stuff and whatever rod I'm throwing it on. All right, I tell you what, it is 9:45. I legitimately thought this was only going to last an hour. I thought that was going to be it, and everybody's like, "All right, cool, we get it, thanks." And that was going to do it. But this is phenomenal. Based on the feedback we got, you, Sean, asking directly, everything the two of you were able to provide for direct information, and the examples we were able to showcase, especially using the wall, bring out the dry erase marker. I do think that everybody found it very, very helpful. I do think that Douglas is going to have a hell of a good sale going on here, which would be good. Again, as Sean said, if at any point you have a question about anything Douglas, you can reach out to us at any point. Like, especially me, especially Sean, Christian. I mean, maybe, but start with us first, and if we can't answer it, then we'll drag in Christian. He's a busy man.
For those who don't know, Christian is a hell of a guitar player too. So
yes, he is.
If he's not fishing, he's playing side by side with Billy Joel and the guitar greats as well. Headlining with Alice Cooper. Let's go. I will say though, with the sale going on, and I see a lot of people in the comments here who are like, "Hey, great sale, got to go over there, got to do this, got to do that." Just going to throw it out there. I got a discount code for every single person out here in Facebook world and YouTube land, whatever you want to call it. SPM Fishing 10. All one word. I'll type it in the comments here. SPM Fishing 10. Use that code. Go on to DouglasOutdoors.com. Go put a rod in your cart. add on that discount code. It's going to get you an additional 10% off of your purchase. It will not work for the already stupid good swim bait rod sale. So sorry, not sorry. But for everything else, there's rods that are on there. There's rods that are 30% off on the website right now. If you go and you add the code SPM Fishing 10, you will also gain an additional 10% off. So those rods that are 30% off, they're now 40%. So go in, check out those rods. If you have questions, like Sean says, reach out to us, but use the discount code buy. Happy to answer questions for you. You will not be disappointed, and they're all backed by the limited lifetime warranty with Douglas. So I'll leave that at that. But go ahead and use my discount code there at your will. Pass it out to your friends. Give it to your enemies. I don't care who you give it to. Just use it.
Beautiful.
Christian says, we're going to make him work in the shipping department. Let's go.
Oh, please, dude. No. I
Lewis
can't.
is going to love us.
Lewis is he's too good, bro.
Yeah.
I'd never be able to tackle what he does.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap it up. I'm getting tired. So next week, for all you kayak anglers, I'm going to have a couple of guests on from New Hampshire Bass Nation Kayak Series to go over, talk about everything they've got going on this year for their tournament series. And if you're interested in that, you want to learn a little bit more about it, either you're looking for a new trail to join in, or maybe you're looking to step into the tournament ring for the first time ever. Either way, these guys are going to break down everything that they're doing with this trail. I've heard very, very good things from all my friends at Two Fish Kayaks. Obviously, I don't, but I'm here to support these guys and kind of help them get on a platform to be able to better share that trail. So if you're interested, tune in next week for that, 8 p.m. every Wednesday night, as usual, right here on the YouTube channel and or Facebook. Real Northern Bass, easy enough to find us. Other than that, Christian and Sean, thank you both very much again. Dude, greatly appreciate the two of you, especially you, Sean, for helping me to kind of, get through the winter doldrum hump here while I wait for my boat to get fixed and kick it into gear and get the thought process going here for some ideas. But next week will be all kayak stuff. After that, there's nothing else planned for now, but I'm sure that's going to change.
We've got some stuff out there that we're working on, but that's like.
You mean your indie band called the Shawns that I'm playing guitar for, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's
cool,
it.
man.
Gotta get that. No, I mean we've got some exciting shows kind of penciled out with our secretaries for the for the summer season, for bringing back some guests, doing some other things, maybe getting a big name or two out there on the live stream to kind of answer questions. Especially after we had Jake on here, that was pretty awesome. So that kind of sent a lot of things into motion there. So
I'm looking forward to having him back on again too.
Yeah, that was a really great conversation.
Yeah, we will have all those swim bait guys back on again, Austin and Kyle and Jose, because kind of like what I said at the beginning of this, where it's like, let's just focus on rods, because we always try and do too much in a single episode. Clearly, because hour and 45 minutes later, we're still talking about just rods. We kind of did the same thing in the swim bait stuff. So those guys are going to come back on, and we're going to be like, okay, we're just talking about spring topics on swim baits, and this is everything we can share and help you guys with. And then we'll do it again in the summer. We'll do it again in the fall. We'll do it like just glides, just crankdowns, just soft bodies, and then really get a chance to go into the finer details of all those tips that we never seem to have enough time to cover. So that's at least something you can look forward to. Other than that, I'm ready to call it
Christian, where can they find you on social media?
Yes.
Douglas Outdoors, Spinning Cast, of course. And then my personal fishing one is Big Fish Synergy, where you can see a lot of big baits being thrown around, a lot of power techniques, hopefully some big fish, a lot of mediums. No, just kidding. I don't know. And then Christian Colabelli is, if you want to see me shred, go on that one.
And he does shred, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, he does.
All right.
Don't leave him in the room with your woman.
Yeah. Magic fingers.
Christian, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Have fun out there. Good luck at the show in Michigan, and have fun. Sell some rods.
Thanks, man.
Come home with an empty van, buddy.
Yeah.
We're gonna, even if we don't sell them, it'll still be. I'm just kidding.
If you want some really good sales, go to Michigan. They're handing out rods.
Like 10 for 3. Just kidding. All right, guys. Thank you.
Welcome. Hey, thank you, everybody. Have a great night. We'll catch you next week.
Cheers.